This is Crime Stoppers, a WBTV News special. In our next report, a life cut short, a father's pain.
He had his whole life ahead of him, and that his life was just beginning.
17-year-old Marquis Thompson was shot dead while walking to something he loved and never missed, basketball practice. This happened last December as his family was getting ready for Christmas, and he was getting his life back together. Tonight, his parents are asking the community to help them solve this murder.
I couldn't imagine that something like that was going to happen to him.
James Hardrick, Marquis's father. What kind of kid was he?
He was a good kid.
A good kid, but not perfect. 2 months before he died, Marquis was caught holding drugs for friends. He was charged and locked up, a first offense. And jail seemed to open his eyes.
He made a promise to me that when that happened, that he wasn't going to be in any more trouble.
Marquis's father says his son kept his word. He got back into school, made good grades, played sports.
He had his whole life ahead of him, and that his life was just beginning.
But as the sun set last December, Marquis was walking home when someone with a gun stopped him and wanted his Christmas cash.
We believe that robbery was the motive in this case here, and he was found lying in the street just on the other side of that manhole cover right here in this intersection.
The intersection of West Stone and West Ridge, just 3 blocks from his home.
We know some folks were walking up West Stone Drive, and we know that they looked back when they heard a shot being fired.
Single shot?
Yes.
So they looked back. What did they tell you that they saw?
They saw a person going through the victim's pockets.
Marquis's young life ended the next morning in the hospital. His father made up T-shirts in his memory and says he'll wear them forever until the killer is caught. You need to hear something.
Yes, I need to hear something. I want to hear something. I've got to hear something. I've got to know something.
Can you help him hear something? Bring justice to this family. Wouldn't take much, just a scrap of information that may earn you up to $1,000. Crime Stoppers number on your screen, 704-334-1600. And again, Molly, what's so tragic about the death of Marquis Thompson? Here's a young man getting his life back on track after some initial problems on the wrong path. You talked to a man recently who had been in a gang, but is also getting a parallel sense, getting his life back on track.
He is a former Charlotte gang member, Max Galvin. Just a few years ago, Max was a member of Sir 13, dangerous Hispanic gang, big presence here in Charlotte. He said his life was about intimidating people at Eastland Mall and fighting MS-13 members on Charlotte streets and in clubs. Now he's a whole new kid. In fact, he's trying to save others. I asked him point blank, why do kids join gangs?
You're popular, you know? You're in a gang, you got attention. You belong to something. And it's important these days, you know, if you're not smoking, or you're not drinking, you're not getting high, you're not hanging out with the right people, you're nobody, you know.
Max Galvin was 16 when he joined Sir 13. He has 5 mugshots. The gang committed crimes, he now says, for their version of a rainy day emergency.
In case we get locked up, try to help each other.
So this was Max. Flashing signs, looking tough. People were scared of him.
It felt pretty good. I mean, you're walking down Eastland Mall, you got 10 guys behind you, it draws attention, you know. Nothing else worked for me.
Max dropped out of Garinger High School in 9th grade.
God and family.
Max is now 23. He is no longer proud to represent Sir 13. The party life.
I got addicted to coke.
The street life.
I actually started stealing from family members.
The gang life.
I was starting to be a disappointment to my homeboys.
It all started to be too much. What made you want to get out?
Fear. Fear that that was going to get me, you know, that I was going to die.
One day, a gang member's girlfriend told him about a church along Albemarle Road. He went, he said, to hide.
They showed me the love of God. They showed me the love of God, and they showed me that it wasn't the way to live.
It wasn't just a miracle turnaround. Max ended up back on the streets, even living under a bridge. One day, someone handed him a flyer for a Christian recovery home called Victory Outreach. He didn't know what it was, but he showed up. An understated brick building on Arrowwood Road. Max has now lived here for 7 months. He's so intent on redemption, he now hands out flyers himself. In a grocery store parking lot in southwest Charlotte, Max approaches people in the same simple, grassroots way which grabbed him.
They'll eventually come. I had a couple of my homeboys already come to the church, family members, and they're trying to spy, see what's going on.
Every day, Max is reminded of a life he regrets. Parents, he says, take him as a lesson. Hug your kids, get involved, ask questions. Don't turn your head.
Just pay more attention to your kids. You know, let them know they're loved.
Would that have worked for you?
It would have helped out. It would have helped out some, you know.
It's pretty powerful. Two other things Max says which stand out. One, he says the rivalry between SIR 13 and MS 13 is, quote, huge. It's huge. It came to Charlotte from other countries. That's what he says. And two, he's emphatic that gangs recruit in all CMS middle and high schools.
A 52-year-old waitress left work at 9 p.m. 4 hours later, her body was discovered 19 miles away on an exit ramp off 485. How'd she get there? How'd she die? And who killed her? 1 a.m., Saturday, July 25th. Drivers getting off I-485 at Johnston Road see something on the ramp.
Charlotte 911. Yeah, I just took the Valentine exit. There's a body on the side of the road. It looked like a female.
Highway Patrol is called for a possible hit and run, but they quickly decide to call Charlotte Homicide.
Something was not quite right about the body, the way it positioned.
Detective Gary McFadden shows me what he thought was odd.
She was lying here on the ground. Her head was towards the street here. Her feet was extended towards the guardrail, and she was lying on her back.
It was as if she'd been placed on the pavement, no skid marks, and not tossed over the guardrail and down into the woods. Even more puzzling, the 52-year-old Norma Jeane Hunsucker worked at this Shoney's on Tuckasegee in Little Rock in West Charlotte as a waitress. She got off work 9 o'clock on Friday night. She lived with her mother in this house, not far from the restaurant. So how did she get from West Charlotte and wind up dead off 485 in Ballantyne, 19 miles away?
We don't know what happened to her after she getting off work, probably 9 o'clock that night. We have no idea where she was, who she saw, or even who picked her up that night.
On the Shoney sign, a message of endearment. Norma Jeane Hunsucker had 3 grown children, but Detective McFadden says he wants to find out what happened to give Norma's 89-year-old mother some closure.
The mother just wants answers. You know, she has no other family to turn to, very limited family to turn to, and they're not accustomed to this kind of violence to be in their family.
That's Detective Gary McFadden. The first answer that he got, Molly, was that the medical examiner ruled that she had been hit by a car and killed that way. Now, the question is, where did she get hit? Apparently not at that ramp because, as I pointed out, the way her body was positioned just perfectly on the side of the road. So the question is, where did she get, was her body dumped there by a hit-and-run driver? We just don't know.
And that was going to be what I asked. She was so far away from, the body was found so far from where she lived. How'd she get there as well?
Big mystery. Still trying to, can you help police solve it? Bring some closure to the family of Norma Jeane Hunsucker? Call the number, 704-334-1600. You don't have to give your name, and you could earn a reward. Crime Stoppers, our WBTV News special continues in just a moment.